We all have our own reasons for loving cinema, and that's precisely what makes movie watching such a delightful experience in the first place. And when it comes to superhero films, they're a whole different experience altogether. Superhero flicks have been around for a very long time now, and regardless of how many of them are made, they never really seem to go out of style. Today, this popular cinematic genre has made it very clear that it's here to stay, but things were different back in the 70s. In fact, the majority of the adaptations of our beloved superheroes were primarily low-budget attempts to make capital out of a popular character. But with that being said, the 70s also brought us some of the earliest superhero movies, and they're filled with an undeniably nostalgic charm that can be relished by an audience belonging to any era, for that matter. Ready for a thrilling dive into the world of 70s superhero movies? Let's not keep you waiting any longer then. Here's taking a look at 12 of the best 70s superhero films that are bound to bring back your fondest memories. But before we get too deep into the list, we do have a very small request. If you enjoy our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Now let's begin.
It is forbidden for you to interfere with
Superman, 1978. It's safe to say that Richard Donner's Superman, which happens to be the first of 4 installments in the Superman film franchise with Christopher Reeve as the titular character, has been conclusively declared the most memorable superhero film that was made in the 70s. Based on a screenplay by Robert Benton, David Newman, Leslie Newman, and Puzo, the film emphasizes the origin of Superman, depicting his early years as Kal-El of Krypton and as a young Clark in Smallville. The storyline further emphasizes the Caped Wonder disguised as reporter Clark Kent for the Daily Planet in Metropolis, his attempts to woo co-worker Lois Lane, and the unforgettable battle with the criminal mastermind Lex Luthor. At the time of its production, Donner's Superman was the most expensive film to have ever been made. We're looking at a budget of $55 million, and given the period Superman was made, you know that's a lot. Of course, the movie was both a critical and financial success, with the film being massively praised for Reeves' epic performance and, to add on top of it, an iconic musical score penned by John Williams. Superman, besides starring an outstanding cast of A-listers such as Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman, and Margot Kidder, amongst others, was also nominated for several Oscar awards at the 51st Academy Awards. We're looking at 19 spectacular wins and 23 nominations, categorically making Superman a significant piece of hero history. The special effects used in the movie were considered groundbreaking, and they most certainly paved the way for the superhero movies that we know and love today.
Yes. Is there anything you can remember about them? Anything that might help me?
Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze, 1975. Directed by Michael Anderson and written by Joe Morhaime and George Pal, this 1975 action film is based on Kenneth Robson's 1933 pulp novel titled The Man of Bronze. The narrative has Ron Ely as the eponymous Doc Savage, learning that his father has died under mysterious circumstances while the latter was exploring the wilds of South America. Naturally, this has Doc Savage and his brain trust, or in other words, the Fabulous Five, embarking on a journey to the unexplored interiors of Hidalgo to probe deeper into the death of Doc's father. However, the group is oblivious to the fact that international criminal and smuggler, Captain Seize, is waiting for them not only to foil their plans, but also to wipe them out entirely. This surprisingly overlooked movie is an outrageously entertaining watch for fans of pulp magazines and old comics. We've got a great cast, with Ron Ely doing complete justice to his role and looking exactly like Doc Savage's picture on the covers of pulp novels. Looking at the storyline, it's a fun ride and has a theme song, which is honestly pretty catchy. The movie has quite a few high points, especially in terms of its exciting opening sequence with Doc Savage and the Fabulous Five going after the sniper via the rooftops of skyscrapers. It's incredibly campy, but that's the whole point of this 1975 movie. What more do you want from a flick jam-packed with vintage yachts, iconic skyscrapers, Tommy guns, period cars, hilarious one-liners, and a whole hell of a lot of action? Now, if you haven't seen this absolute delight of a film and you're planning to, it's well worth seeking out. Don't make the mistake of taking this movie seriously though. Sit down with a tub of popcorn and dig into this impossibly campy treat. Captain America, 1979. Well, there's no denying that actor Chris Evans is the modern Captain America everyone today is familiar with, but one of the earliest portrayals of the character was from former footballer turned actor, the legendary Reb Brown. Written by Don Ingalls and directed by Rod Holcomb, this 1979 movie gambled with the star-spangled superhero's backstory, separating itself from the comics version. The plotline has Brown as Steve Rogers, a former Marine who's seen making a living as a commercial artist and doing most of his traveling in a conversion van. After a critical incident, he's injected with an experimental super steroid serum that boosts his strength and reflexes. To help Rogers solve the mystery behind his government agent father's death, and of course, bring the perpetrators to justice, his conversion van is reconfigured into a high-tech motorcycle loaded with gadgets and an indestructible shield. It's safe to say this is how Rogers is led to his destiny as Captain America, and he begins to fight the nation's biggest enemies. This movie has an undeniable 70s charm that's pretty hard to dismiss in the first place. Of course, Reb Brown is one of the strongest points of the whole film, but we also have Len Berman in the role of a certain Dr. Simon Mills to give credit for, as the latter offers an interesting portrayal of an interesting character. Next, kudos to Mike Post and Pete Carpenter for coming up with such a terrific theme song that's catchy enough to keep you humming for days to follow. To those of you planning on watching this little gem, give this movie a few minutes to settle into its own and we promise you'll have a memorable time. The Incredible Hulk, 1977. Kenneth Johnson's The Incredible Hulk is a 2-hour television pilot movie that not only brought to the screen the story of the Incredible Hulk for the first time, but also proved explicitly that one doesn't have to resort to using CGI, special effects, or even prosthetics for that matter, when you have the blessing of Lou Ferrigno. Of course, those who have seen this movie know precisely what we're talking about. A fantastic twist on the comic, this storyline has a research scientist inadvertently overexposing himself to a huge dose of gamma radiation, which causes him to transform into a rampaging, exceedingly powerful, monstrous-looking green beast under extreme levels of emotional stress, thereby giving the audience a treasured piece of Hulk history. With The Incredible Hulk aging and becoming more of a vintage film today, what continues to remain striking, even 47 years later, is the portrayal of Ferrigno as the Hulk and the late Bill Bixby as Dr. David Bruce Banner. The acting was surprisingly on point, with Ferrigno symbolizing raw primal rage and Bixby bringing life to his character in a way no one ever would. Together, the actors are a perfect blend of extremes in the movie, and there's just no denying that. Also, if we may add, Ferrigno gave the Hulk a lot more soul than the recent CGI versions, and full credit to Johnson for taking some relatively strong liberties with the character's name and origin for that matter. The high point of this film has to be David turning into the Hulk for the first time, with special emphasis on the high standard editing and score used in that particular sequence. If you're somebody who hasn't seen this movie yet, and we kinda think there aren't many people who haven't, give it a shot, solitarily for the sympathetic, misunderstood green monster. You won't regret it. The new original Wonder Woman, 1975. Leonard J. Horne gave us the beautiful and unforgettable Linda Carter in the iconic role of Diana Prince, and it's fitting to say that Carter unapologetically continues to be the best live-action version of Wonder Woman to exist. This one's to every Gal Gadot fan out there. It's nothing personal, but we call them like we see them. Now, looking at the narrative, it has American pilot Steve Trevor crash landing on Paradise Island in the Bermuda Triangle. The uncharted island happens to be the home of the Amazons, whose very existence has been a secret affair for countless years. The Amazon princess Diana is eventually chosen to accompany Trevor back to America and fight against the German Reich upon learning about the Nazi threat. Dressed in a costume featuring the emblems of America and a golden belt, and armed with bullet-deflecting bracelets and a golden lasso that coerces people to obey and tell the truth when bound within its grasp, Diana becomes Wonder Woman to fight the very forces of evil. One of the main things that made this movie work in its favor was the cast, and by that, we strictly mean Carter and the late Lyle Waggoner. Those who have seen this film will agree with us when we tell you that there's a hint of playfulness between the duo that's actually quite infectious. The movie is categorically a product of its time, and if we're being honest, Carter was nothing less than a cultural phenomenon back then. Everything about this movie is exciting, from the iconic costume to the very bracelets that deftly kept the bullets out of Wonder Woman's way. Also, can we take a brief second to admire how stunning Carter really was throughout, and that she provided perfect charm to her character, making even the most boring scenes captivating? We highly recommend giving this one a watch if you haven't. Trust us when we say you'll thank us later. SpiderMan, 1977. In case you didn't know, it was during the 70s that the character of Spider-Man featured in film for the very first time. and for that, we have the late E.W. Swackhammer to be grateful for. Written by Alvin Boretz, this TV superhero film served as the pilot to the television series The Amazing Spider-Man, which was also released that same year. The film stars Nicholas Hammond both as Peter Parker and his web-slinging alter ego, who gets bitten by a radioactive spider and discovers that he has gained newfound superpowers in the process. Parker, who works as a freelance photographer for the tabloid newspaper The Daily Bugle, soon becomes the costume superhero Spider-Man to fight crime in New York City. This TV movie is here not only because it's one of the highest performing CBS productions of the decade, but also because it had a theatrical release abroad. Swackhammer's Spider-Man certainly did an admirable job displaying the origin of the superhero, and may we also add here that Nicholas Hammond was simply marvelous in the role. It's fair to call this a humorous version of the comic book, one that's filled with delightfully campy situations and dialogue. Now, it's true that the special effects featured weren't exactly appealing, but they did a fair job, given the period in which they belonged. One simply has no reason not to give this fun treat a little watch. The Super Inframan, 1975. What we're looking at now is a Hong Kong sci-fi superhero action movie that was inspired by the tremendous success of the Japanese tokusatsu franchises like Ultraman and Kamen Rider in particular. Directed by Hua Shan and written by Ni Kuang, the plotline has demon princess Elzebub waking up from 10 million years of dormancy and reviving her legion of skeleton ghosts and mutant humanoids to wreak havoc on Earth. This naturally has Professor Liu Ying-Day creating a countermeasure against the demon princess, and he has his highest-ranking officer turned into the bionic superhero Inframan in response to Elzebub. However, with Elzebub capturing the professor's daughter, the question remains whether Inframan can save her and the planet before it's too late. The Super Inframan is a reminder of the solitary fact that even a low-budget movie can be epic and fun at the same time. The highlight of this camp classic categorically happens to be the villainous demon princess Elzebub, and her character itself is enough to keep you invested for a good 84 minutes. Next comes Inframan, whose outfit certainly cannot be taken lightly. Now, you might say that the plot makes no sense, but then again, for movies like this, you didn't really come for the plot. You come for the absurdity on display, and you're meant to embrace it. Also, don't miss out on the monsters here. There's this one particular lizard-like beast breathing fire featured in the flick that just cannot be disregarded. If what we've described grabs you at all, you should definitely give this 1975 movie a shot. Doctor Strange, 1978. You might be surprised to learn that Philip DeGuer's made-for-TV superhero movie had the legendary Stan Lee serving as a consultant on the film. Created as a pilot for a proposed TV series, DeGuer's Doctor Strange was the first on-screen adaptation of the Marvel Comics character. But mind you, in this version, the character is depicted as a psychiatrist before his eventual transformation into a superhero. Story-wise, we have psychiatrist Dr. Stephen Strange becoming the new Sorcerer Supreme so as to defend Earth from the evil sorceress from the fourth dimension, Morgan Le Fay, who has her own sinister agenda and wants to invade the planet. Well, long before Benedict Cumberbatch, there was Peter Hooton, who essayed the role of Doctor Strange. And while DeGuer's Doctor Strange was a decent attempt to capture the colorful pages of the popular comic book on the big screen, the movie came nowhere near Cumberbatch's modern adaptations. However, what is truly admirable is the attempt to bring a more obscure Marvel character to a live-action context. The special effects on display are laughable given the era we belong to now, but the saving grace of this 1978 movie conclusively happens to be Jessica Walter, yeah, that's right, Archer's mom and the matriarch of the Bluth family, in the character of Morgan Le Fay. Also, Clyde Kusatsu delivers as Wong. And there's no denying that DeGuer's Doctor Strange has a certain nostalgic appeal to it that actually makes the film an enjoyable watch at the end of the day. Exoman, 1977. Addressing every Iron Man fan in the room, please know that Richard Irvine's Exoman is no way even remotely related to Jon Favreau's Iron Man film, nor is the 1977 movie an earlier prototype of the character in any form. Now that we're clear on that, let's take a look at the narrative of this made-for-TV superhero movie, backed by a screenplay by Henry Simoon and Lionel E. Siegel. Actor David Aykroyd stars as Dr. Nicholas Conrad, a research scientist and physics professor who winds up in a wheelchair, unable to walk after an attack on him by mob hitmen. In response, he builds an armored exobionic suit that not only enables him to walk again, but also helps him fight crime. Those of you who have seen the superhero TV series Mantis are bound to say that Exoman bears a strong similarity, at least in terms of story. While we leave that to you, let's talk a little bit more about Exoman here. First things first, you aren't looking at any cinematic masterpiece here, but what you are looking at happens to be based on a novel by Martin Caidin. While the acting is okay and the special effects on display can be tolerated, it's the storyline where it gets interesting. Also, we gotta say the design of the suit is great, and when accompanied with the background score, it gives you this particular feeling of power. It's an enjoyable movie, and we'd recommend everyone watch it at least once, and then tell us your thoughts in the comments section below. Three Giant Men, 1973. T. Fikret Ukak's Turkish superhero film, which is also known as Three Dev Adam, has Aytekin Ekea in the role of Captain America and Yavuz Selekman as Mexican wrestler Santo. The plotline has the duo called in on a special mission to Istanbul to put a halt to the nefarious activities of SpiderMan and his criminal gang. Believe it or not, it's pretty hard to picture our friendly neighborhood SpiderMan in a villainous role choking women in bathtubs, stealing statues, and dare we disregard him using a switchblade to kill people, but then again, this is precisely what happens in this Turksploitation film. Tevfik Sen as Spider-Man is the movie's high point, and to top it, the Spider-Man featured here has this uncanny ability to come back unharmed from death as many times as he wishes. Of course, this film is odd, and some would even say that it hardly makes sense, but if you tend to like all things cheesy, want to have mindless fun, and enjoy a rather unconventional take on your favorite heroes, you should definitely check Three Giant Men out. SpiderMan, 1978. At times referred to as Japanese Spider-Man, this superhero film, which was directed by Koichi Takimoto and written by Susumu Takaku, was basically a spin-off from the Japanese live-action tokusatsu superhero TV series, also titled Spider-Man. Produced and distributed by Toei Company, the film has Takuya Yamashiro, who is colloquially known as the Japanese Spider-Man, joining forces with Interpol agent Juzu Mamiya to fight against the evil forces of the unstoppable Iron Cross Army. The primary thing about Takimoto's Spider-Man is that it fulfills its purpose. The film is highly entertaining. Okay, we can't exactly call it a film because it only boasts a runtime of 24 minutes, but then this also means that there's just no way you'll get bored while watching it. We'd like to emphasize the editing and sound effects on display, which are utterly hilarious. Up next, we've got Takuya Yamashiro, who is a high point in the movie, along with characters Professor Monster and, get this, Sea Devil too. Also, the glorious background score by Michiaki Watanabe certainly deserves a mention because Spider-Man wouldn't have been half as much fun as it was if it wasn't for that incredible theme music. Captain America 2, Death Too Soon, 1979. Ivan Nagy's made-for-television superhero movie happened to be the sequel to Rod Holcomb's Captain America, which also aired on CBS earlier in the same year. Written by Wilton Schiller, the movie carried on the legacy of Reb Brown as Captain America. Story-wise, Captain America is seen taking on General Miguel, a freelance revolutionary terrorist who has plans of holding the whole of America hostage. That's not all. If General Miguel's demand for a multi-million-dollar ransom isn't met, he'll unleash a chemical that will cause its unsuspecting victims to rapidly age. While credit has to be given to the creators for releasing two feature-length movies in the same year, many believe that Captain America 2, Death Too Soon, would have worked far better if it was made as a TV series. Now, when it comes to the high points of the sequel, it irrefutably has to be the late Christopher Lee as the villainous General Miguel. Next, we've got Reb Brown, whose sincerity and honesty work wonders in favor of the film, and may we also mention that he adds a major likability factor in the sequel. His performance is backed up by some pretty decent stunt work in the film, with a special mention to the motorcycle jump off the dam. It's also fitting to say that the sequel has a lot more action, a bigger budget, and a better storyline than its predecessor. Captain America 2, Death Too Soon is a worthy follow-up that certainly deserves your attention, too. Marvelous verdict! Well, that's all for today, and with this, we've finally come to the end of our video. So, which of these superhero movies from the 70s left a lasting impression on you? Did your favorite superhero movie make it to the list? We'd love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and we certainly hope we've delivered your fill of superhero nostalgia for the day. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Please leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and stay tuned to Marvelous Videos, as we promise to be back with more exciting comic book content. Until next time, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.